Some people will tell you that racism has been eradicated from mainstream society, except for a few ignorant people. But those people are just more wrong than ever and more ignorant than ever. The truth is that racism today is instigated by the force that dictates what the mainstream is in America, and that force is the media. Consider this, if we live in a post-racial utopia, why every time I go on the news am I seeing headlines like, Texas principal bans Spanish language from being spoken in school? Why is it that when I see a movie not starring white people, their non-whiteness is the real star of the show? Why is it that when I hear about an entire battalion of soldiers that got captured, the only one that I really know about is the pretty white girl? Why doesn't John Doe know about the all-out war going on between gangs in his city? Why isn't Diane Sawyer telling me about the plight of Latino immigrants being blackmailed by drug cartels in their home countries? Now, you're going to think that I have no right to be speaking about this, but I don't think that color affects my ability to see the truth. And that truth is really simple. The American mainstream media is racist to the core. Why is that? Why do race-based news stories seem to dominate the airwaves in circulation? Well, I remember a scene from Anchorman 2, in which Ron Burgundy discovers that the best way to get the top ratings, beat every other channel, is to tell people what they need to hear, to tell people what they want to hear, not what they need to hear. Though this might seem ridiculous, comedy has a source, and that source is reality. Without intent to disrespect the many journalists who I'm sure uphold their integrity and seek to objectively report the news, reality is that ultimately most mainstream media outlets aim to just get the higher ratings and get a leg up on all the other outlets. And the prevalence of race-based headlines shows that the way to get higher ratings is to do a technique called race baiting, playing on the insinuations of racism, and that's the way to peg public interest. Minorities killing other minorities is apparently not rating worthy. Consider this, if Trayvon Martin had been killed by gang members who had mistaken him for a member of a rival gang, do you think the story would have gotten any attention at all? No, I don't think so. But why is America only concerned when one race is killed by a different race? Or if white people are involved? Any credible religious, ethical, or moral authority will tell you two things. One, that racism is wrong, and two, that technology should be existing just to help people get information and help people communicate with each other. But all people, that's the key word, but there's such a disparity in coverage that that's just completely not true. And this may seem contrary to what I've just said, but the media often ignores racial issues too. I bet you've heard of Natalie Holloway, I bet you've heard of Kaylee Anthony, and I bet you heard of J.C. Dugard. Missing children, trails seemingly gone cold, searchings ending in mostly bodies, but some cases in survival. All tragic stories, yeah, but what do you think those three cases have in common? Now, ask yourself, have you ever heard of Melanie Ethier, who vanished in Toronto in 1996 at the age of 15 and has never been found, even until today? Do you know about Tamika Houston, missing from her South Carolina home in 2004 and later found to have been killed by her ex-boyfriend? What do you think Melanie Ethier and Tamika Houston have in common? I bet you've never heard of them. That's not what they have in common, though. And now, ask your parents or someone older about Laci Peterson. She is a pretty similar case to Tamika Houston. She went missing in 2002 without a trace. A huge media attention was attracted to it, unlike Houston's case. And then it was later found out that her husband had killed her. Yeah, now ask yourself, do you think Laci Peterson is white and attractive? Yeah, of course she is. Laci Peterson was white and attractive, and that brings me to one of my next points about one of the most racist things ever, which is called missing white woman syndrome. Here's how it goes. An attractive young white woman goes missing. The media latches onto the story and diverts a huge amount of attention to it. America is captivated, wondering for days on end what could have happened to that person, someone so normal-seeming, someone who could have been their next-door neighbor. The media reasons that due to America's white majority, Americans as a whole will sympathize with the plight of this missing white girl in our family and pay far more attention to a story. And sadly, that's pretty true. Consider this. How many cases of non-white missing people can you think of off the top of your head? 0. That's right. But the media is not limited to news. I bet you've all played Grand Theft Auto, or someone you know has played Grand Theft Auto. It's the best-selling video game of all time. Now, think of the character you played as. If he wasn't Italian, then what was he? He was black or Latino, right? And if in the game, he goes around beating up hookers and robbing stores. I'm not a huge gamer, but from what I've seen, not many video games portray minority characters doing anything other than committing crime. Can you think of any Asian superheroes? I was never into comic books, so I only know the big ones, and they're all white. Movies and television are guilty of the same type of racism. When the, first of all, really rare movie starring minority protagonists is made, I'd wager that at least 7 times out of 10, racism is the central theme of the movie. I can recall an article a few months back by a black civil rights activist who announced he would not be going to see 12 Years a Slave, saying he was tired of the barrage of movies like it. Instead, he was asking, where are the movies about normal black people, normal Asians, normal Latinos, just living out their lives and facing problems similar that all people face and even white people face? The same goes for TV. If you were going to go through the top 25 TV shows of last year, I'd venture to say that you'd find at least 23 with a white main character, probably more. I'm not trying to say that shows with non-white stars don't exist or are actively shut down by the viewers. I'm saying they're really rarely made by major networks. Some like The Wire, but even in The Wire, it was about a bunch of different main characters, if I remember correctly, right? And only one of them was black. Consider this. How many major examples of entertainment media focus on the day-to-day lives of modern, normal, non-white people? Okay, so America has advanced, obviously, really far past the age of segregation and civil rights and having to march for voting rights and basic rights like the right to drink at a water fountain or go. But still, do you actually honestly think that it's completely past racism? Of course not. Our source of information that we get from the media, it's the biggest perpetuator of racism, even though it might not be intentional. But before you dismiss any of the opinions, call me an apologist or whatever, consider this. Where do you think the racism sprinkled into modern culture comes from? And where do you think the information that modern culture gets comes from?